Welcome to Intel Presents The Learning Curve, supported by the Times of India, an initiative that's helping parents and educators navigate the evolving role of technology in children's learning journeys. At its heart, the learning curve is about shifting mindsets and building confidence in the power of tech-enabled learning. I'm your host, Daksh Sethi, and in this series, we'll talk to change makers and thought leaders who are reimagining what learning can look like in today's world. Today, we're exploring how technology can adapt to each child's unique learning style, pace, and gaps. And who better to talk about this than our guest today? Someone who spent over a decade building India's leading adaptive learning platforms. He's the CEO of Educational Initiatives, the brain behind Mindspark, a Harvard Business School alumnus, a global speaker, and above all, a champion for personalized learning. Pranav Kothari. Pranav, welcome to Padhai Ki Charcha.
Thank you, Daksh. Pleasure to be here and looking forward to our conversation.
Perfect. Let's get rolling. Let's begin with the basics. Personalized learning is a buzzword today. We hear it quite often. But for how many parents, it's still a vague idea. It's still a generic thought. How do you define it?
Yeah, I think, personalized learning, if you trace back, has always existed, right? The Guru Shishya Parampara was in a way like there was one teacher, one student at a time teaching that. In some ways, tutoring, when, Kamal sir comes home and teaches you, in a way is also personalized learning. But both of these are expensive. There is limited teachers available and it's not affordable by everyone. So I think technology allows us to personalize the learning. What's happening today is that when you go to a school, one teacher is teaching 20, 30, sometimes 40 students. Every child is different. Every child's, the way they learn, the speed at which they learn, the language in which they learn the best, all of that is individual. But still, we are having all of this being batch processed. And there are reasons for that. I think it's convenient. It's a leftover from the industrial era. There are economic reasons to do that. Now, personalized learning actually today with technology can be done in a very cost-effective as well as a high-impact basis. When we talk about personalized, it could be on any of these domains. It could be a time that the child wants to study. What if someone wants to study on a Sunday afternoon? Or on their vacation in Dubai, they should have the access to learning and it should not be confined to the weekdays and when they go to school. It could also be the subject. Maybe someone likes maths more and they want to go deeper in that. The ability for technology to provide anytime, anywhere, any subject learning to students goes up. We have seen like in the low income space, in a city like Mumbai, there are students who have migrated from all over India. And even the Bombay Municipal Corporation is providing schools that are Tamil medium, Marathi medium, Hindi medium, Urdu medium. And in the same building, we've been able to provide personalized learning software, Mindspark, in 4 different languages, right? So the ability to personalize is basis where the child is at, when the child wants to learn, what subject they want to learn, what language might they learn the best in? It can also be on gamification and nudge. So how do you motivate students to log in and learn? Because there's always competition with YouTube and cricket and many other, forms of entertainment. So personalized learning in a way is completely customized to the child's desires, needs. And we also use a word called adaptive learning, which means it adapts to the way the child answers questions, what knowledge do they already have, and what knowledge do they need to learn next. So that's how this category of personalized adaptive learning has sort of gained more mainstream. And I think I'm excited about how it's going to grow, especially with the use of AI going forward.
So in fact, our survey at the Learning Curve found that completing assignments and exploring new skills were the top things parents wanted their children to use their laptops for. They see value, but many don't know how to activate that value. What are some examples of a modern AI PC actually helping this personalization?
Yeah, I would encourage parents to, provide their children with the technology devices for learning. It also helps to have a larger screen compared to, let's say, a small smartphone or even a small tablet. In some cases here, the more real estate you have, the easier it is to learn, because a lot of learning software, needs to provide many forms of instruction, questions, gamifications. It's also better for the eyes if the screen is larger. So I think a laptop would be good, because a lot of Gen Alpha will want to study on their bedroom, in the garden, take it with them on their vacations. So I think it provides the mobility to do this. But just hardware is not going to be enough. There have been numerous experiments even when every child was given a tablet, we found that there were zero or negative learning gains. So good hardware has to be complemented with good learning software on it. And unlike adults, like you and I can actually master a new concept by going to a Coursera or multiple of these MOOC or online learnings, because we have achieved a certain level. But for a 7-year-old, 8-year-old, they need a structured learning path. So good PC would have good learning software that has a structured learning path that guides and coaches the child to learn forward. So good AI-based PC, would diagnose what the child currently knows, what is it that they are struggling with, and help them learn forward. Let's take an example. A child has to complete 1/3 plus 2/5, and they get this wrong. It's possible that the child didn't understand fractions, 1 apple out of 3 fruits, or 2 slices of pizza. So the software would then take the children to a learning part where they master fractions. Now they've mastered fractions, but they're still struggling with adding 1/3 plus 2/5. So it's possible they don't know what is LCM, or least common multiple. And it would help to teach that. If the child is struggling with LCM, maybe they don't know multiplication. If they don't know multiplication is repeated addition of the same number, all the way down to recognizing the digit 3 and understanding what 3 is, right? So a good AI PC is able to have a structured learning path. It has takes the child, it's personalized. So a child logs in with their username or password. If there are siblings that are sharing the laptop, it needs to be able to have a different account for each child. And this would actually be something that would be very powerful in the hands of children. There are many risks that people think about when it's exposure to internet, or now with generative AI. And there are ways to put guardrails on this, right? There is a fair bit of software that can control what students get, like a child mode. And what we have also done is through Mindspark, there are, you can't ask questions that can pose danger to society. You can use it for the creative pursuits. So good AI PC is enabling learning, because remember that children grow up every day, 365 days a year, but schools are only open for 180 days a year. And this AI PC can be a great way for continuity of learning.
Well, I think it's all about continuation of learning. It's a good adaptation of a lot of technology coming into modern classrooms today, and it's all about adaptive learning. I think that's the talk of the town, and it defines what each child primarily needs. Something that even best of the teachers can struggle with in large classrooms. But how does this approach really help bridge learning gaps?
Yeah, I think the current methodology is everyone's finishing the syllabus, right? So there is a certain amount of curriculum, a certain number of chapters in the textbook, and it's tagged to grade 6. And everybody is trying to, keep the train on schedule. Now, what this does is just the delivery aspect of it. I was supposed to teach 23 chapters in 150 periods, and I did it. But delivery is not absorption. Just because you taught it doesn't mean that the child understood it, or all the children understand it. And so I think where this diagnostic of continuously measuring what has the child absorbed, what have they learned, what do they still have a doubt on, what do they have a misconception on, remediating that in time is a very important component of bridging these gaps. Because if these gaps are not covered instantly, then they will snowball into bigger things. If you have not understood how electrons move, you will struggle with electricity, with magnetism, with sort of, other higher order topics, and that would just compound the problem. So I think what good technology, which is both hardware and software, can do is on a daily basis, sort of clear up any doubts, clear up any structural conceptual knowledge that a child needs, so that when they go to school the next day, they build on that knowledge. It's like you can't build the 8th floor of a building when the 5th floor is not in place. And I think that's the role of technology in bridging any gaps that get created on a daily, weekly, monthly basis.
That's a pretty interesting and a critical point, because in one of our campaign surveys, nearly a third of the parents listed academic stress as a top concern. So if we can reduce that by letting each child move at their own pace, it's a win for both performance and mental health. Now a lot of parents think tech in education sidelines teachers, but in your experience, does it empower them instead?
Absolutely. If you think about 4,000 years ago, when the pyramids were built, they were the tallest structure ever built. At that time, the pyramids utilized about 10,000 laborers, approximately. It was the tallest building at that time, and it's roughly equivalent to maybe 30 floors or so. Today, the tallest building, the Burj Khalifa, built last decade, is about 7 times taller than the pyramids. And do you know how many people it employed? About 10,000, the same as the pyramids. So I think what technology does is it doesn't remove humans, it allows them to achieve much more. The way I feel is that technology will not replace the teacher, it will allow the teacher to achieve the intent of every child learning much more than they could have done. I feel man and machine can do much more than either man alone or machine alone. And I think in that context, technology can aid teachers. So the question is how? First and foremost, every teacher I talk to, they sort of wish they had a smaller class size. There are some government schools which have 100 students and they wish they had 50. There are private schools that had 30 students and they, talk about boutique schools that have 5 students. So teachers inherently understand that a smaller class size would allow them to be more effective. But this doesn't work both economically, the price goes up, as well as availability of good teachers is in short supply. This is where technology comes in. Technology can be a great digital tutor for every child. It can be a great digital assistant for every teacher. And it can be a great digital dashboard for every administrator. The way technology supports teachers to achieve their intent. Teachers want every child to succeed, but they have limited time, energy, bandwidth to do this. And technology can come to their rescue. So imagine that every child is learning on a digital software, but the software is giving teachers consolidated information on what they should teach the next day. So imagine on Monday, a teacher of class 5B walks into the classroom. She teaches decimals. Why are decimals important in real life? Where do they see it? On Tuesday, the teacher walks with the computer students to the computer lab. She learns and activates this topic. So every student is learning at their own pace. At the end of Tuesday, the software reports back to the teacher, hey, most of the students have understood decimals up to 1 digit and now need to know 2 digits. But by the way, Daksh and Pranav are 2 students who have mastered this topic, and there is these 2 students who need to get the basics. Now, this is very timely information for the teacher to decide on a lesson plan for Wednesday. And the rest of the week, the children can learn from home, they can learn from school. But the teacher continues to be the single person responsible for the child's thing, because whatever the children do on the laptop through the AI software, the teacher has visibility into this. So, there is only one custodian of the child's learning, and technology has actually helped the teacher by giving them real-time data on where the class is. It's almost like the teacher has a thermometer reading of every child's temperature before they even walked into the class and knows what to do next.
All right, Pranav, I think that's a fairly easier point to understand when resources are pretty much available. But then, you've been somebody who's largely worked with government and low-income schools. So how does personalization work in resource-constrained settings?
Yeah, I think I feel technology can provide even more when resources are constrained, right? Because let's face it, in the highest end of the school spectrum, people have access to libraries at home, they have subscription to software, they send their children to schools where the teachers are handpicked. And So, arguably technology will accelerate the learning there. But in the low end spectrum, there are limited times, there are limited teachers, there are limited opportunities for children. There may not be much at home. They may not be even eating dinner at home. But what we have in India now is that one of the parents at least has a smartphone with internet connection. And I think what technology can do is enable that child to be able to learn at home. We find there are many teenage girls who don't go to school because they may have to take care of a younger one at home. We find that there are many cases that the teenage girls, the high school is 5 kilometers away and parents are hesitant to send. In these contexts, technology is their only access to learning that they can have. Again, I would not say that just a smartphone with internet that may have distractions, that may have dangerous things that can happen. But when inside a learning software, you can contain many of these things. A lot of people ask me, will technology with the divide grow even bigger? And I say, without technology, there was a divide, and technology is our only hope to actually close the divide between rich and poor when it comes to learning. We work with about 2,000 government schools at the bottom of the pyramid. We have found that the government has put computer labs in these schools and continues to do that. But if only hardware was dumped, then they're gathering dust, or at best, children are doing paint, which doesn't help. But we have been able to go there, put the learning software, train the teachers, get the permissions from the SCIT, work with the block officers to monitor this. And when doing this, children are learning about 3 times more compared to a control group. A lot of this has been done through third-party evaluations and has been documented. I think it's going to be harder and harder to get good teachers because teaching as a profession isn't the most aspirational one in India. The outcome of our education system today is not necessarily as good as it used to be. And, that's the supply pool for people to become teachers. So what we need to do is work with the available quality of teachers, upskill them, but allow every child to get one period of a personalized adaptive learning in the school. Again, the government has done a fabulous job of building a primary school within 1 kilometer walking distance and providing a hot, nutritious meal for lunch every day, right? So imagine at the scale of government schools, we have 1.5 million or 15 lakh schools, 30 crore students go to school every day. All of them are getting access to schooling and a hot lunch. I think we can add one period of technology-based learning on top of this, and that would tremendously help improve learning at the low resource spectrum. By any stretch of imagination, you look at the cost of a laptop plus the cost of internet, and you divide it by, let's say, GDP per capita or income per capita, I think that fraction is starting to make more and more sense, because what's the alternative? People are paying for tuitions, which is more expensive than technology, or people are paying, and we know that people are willing to pay for smartphone with internet, right? So marginal cost of providing a smartphone with internet to the child when they're using their parents' phone is borderline zero, right? And I think that is, so I'm pretty excited about technology actually helping even all income segments, regardless of your parent income. Technology will help improve learning.
Well, we've definitely spoken about the learning aspect of technology and enabling education, higher education with the help of technology. Let's talk a little more about future readiness. One of the big messages of the learning curve is future readiness. Helping kids build the skills they need for the jobs of tomorrow. So how does personalized learning prepare them for that?
Yeah, I think I don't know what my future and what skills I need to build. The world is changing so fast. But what I do know is that as and when new things come, where to go and learn. And I think what this does is, because all of us have different interest areas. And by the time we are 10, 12, 15 years and older, we have choices, we have preferences. We may like, someone may like writing, someone may like scientific inquiry. Someone may want to go deeper in spirituality. Someone may want to sort of go deeper in coding. If all of us were forced to do the same thing, then only some of us who want to do that one particular thing would flourish. But I think what personalized learning does is it allows us to paint on a larger canvas, or it allows us to paint on our own canvas what we want to do. And I think, see, it's not possible for one school in a neighborhood, let's say even in urban Bangalore, to be able to cater to this wide spectrum of interests that people have now adopted. Like 50 years ago, everybody was doing language, math, science, social studies. But today, people are learning foreign languages. They want to learn dance. They want to learn coding. They want to learn computational thinking. People are learning collaborative problem solving. That menu of options has increased quite a bit. And the only way you can cater to that is by complementing the available human teachers with technology. And I think there will be a better and better supply of learning platforms on one side. And, thanks to standardization in technology, the way to access all of that is through a laptop with internet. So I'm quite bullish about this. And I think, for people who want to learn, this is provided. In fact, Professor Bror Saxberg has found this research that all children can learn at the same rate under two conditions. They have access to a structured learning path and they are motivated. And I think both of those things technology can provide really.
I think that's a very well articulated answer. You're talking about as long as you have accessibility to a laptop or a device with some internet, some good internet connection, learning won't stop. But that brings me to another important point, and it pretty much aligns us with what parents told us. There's a huge appetite for laptops that go beyond schoolwork and help kids explore new skills like coding and design, as you mentioned. But there's still confusion, especially around what kind of device to choose, the integration, the format of the device, whether it will be used well. And our survey also showed that over 33% of parents want expert guidance to feel more confident about their tech decisions. There's definitely a generation gap, at times. So for someone who's watching right now, what would your advice be to a parent choosing a device or learning tool for their child?
Yeah, I think this is a very important consideration. And the way I see it is prioritize your health, right? So how can health be better? First of all, like having access to a computer with maybe an external monitor and a keyboard helps maintain good posture, your spine. A lot of times on the phone, your neck is taking on the weight of your head. And then people will face spondylitis and other back solutions. But I always make sure that my laptop is elevated, it's connected to an external keyboard, and it allows me to keep a straight, good posture. So I think posture is important. Second is the size of the screen, right? The smaller it is, the more you have to squint, the more you have to, the more the temptation to take it in your hand. But like with a laptop, you can do that. I also feel laptops allow for more creation because of the keyboard. You can type better messages, better English, better vocabulary. Of course, with modern stylus, you can draw and paint on this. So I feel ergonomics is a very important consideration. Beyond that, I think there are practical things like battery life and the quality of the display. In terms of other important parameters, but from me, I usually make sure that I'm using it in good posture, and I would advocate the same for kids because we don't want all of them to have early back pain, and many of them have glasses today, but that can be avoided by making sure lighting is good and radiation is less from some of the screens.
Pranav, we've spoken about the kids, the students, we've spoken about their parents. Let's talk about the teachers and the school leaders, watching the show. How do we build a more personalized learning ecosystem across the board?
Yeah, and teachers have a very important role to play in a child's education, and principals are in positions of power to allocate resources. There are always limited resources in every organization, including a school. What I have found is that there's currently an obsession with infrastructure, like maybe lawns or AC classrooms, and maybe some of that is basic hygiene. But I feel more and more people are going overboard by putting an Olympic-sized swimming pool And that ends up being the attraction for parents. And that's what they show around. We have to remember that the predominant reason to go to school is learning, because there are clubs and extracurricular classes for everything else, right? So when it comes to learning, schools are trying to get the best teachers. But again, they are finite in number and many of them are just poaching from nearby schools. And I feel like the best risk insurance on this is to invest in a computer lab. And with India's intermittent electricity, laptops have a good way of sort of having the power reserve. Of course, you can find ways to do with desktops and UPS backups. But computer labs are good because, the shelf life, we have seen in our experience that hardware can last for 5 years or more because you've fixed it to the wall. You fixed it to the desk alongside the wall, you've perpetually plugged it in. It's so much better to move children than to move devices, right? It's anyways good for children to get up, walk around, take a 2-minute walk to the computer lab where the laptops are or desktops are there, and learn through that in a personalized way. The challenge with a smart board or a smart class is it's still one size fits all. And the smart class tends to elbow out the teacher because maybe they are doing now less actively because they can just play a video or PowerPoint. But every time I've seen the engagement on the students is variable. There are some students who are hooked, but many of them are not able to relate to it. Maybe it's too difficult for them or too easy for them. The beauty of personalized learning is it can adapt to the child's intersection of what they know and what they don't know. And that's where Professor Mihai calls this as flow, where you lean in, you engage, you really want to do because it's just right level of difficulty to you. Something that's too difficult causes stress. Hindi mein bolte bouncer ja raha hai. Something that's too easy, you get bored. Yaar, ye to kar liya humne. But when it's at the intersection of what you know and what you don't know, that's when you can be at your peak learning thing. So I think schools should prioritize investments in computer labs because that is the first step towards providing personalized learning, which is a very important necessity given that the teachers are getting increasingly burdened with more diversity of students, more diverse learning styles, and physically, it's just getting harder and harder to do that.
I think, Pranav, from the answers that you've given, it's quite evident that we're talking about the 4 pillars over here. We're talking about the infrastructure, the hardware, we're talking about the students themselves, we're talking about the parents, and now we're talking about, in terms of personalized learning, the school ecosystem and the teachers as well. Before we wrap up, if you had to look ahead, what would your vision of a truly personalized education system look like?
Yeah, I'm very excited about generative AI. In our research, we have been wanting to do things for 20 years, but couldn't. And now we're able to do it. So an example is giving students feedback on their speaking like an English teacher. Always wanted to do it. But up until, ChatGPT and LLMs came out, the voice recognition, the ability to process unstructured text, ability to, give feedback was not possible. So in our latest Mindspark English software, children can speak for a minute or two and get feedback as an English teacher would give them in less than 5 seconds. We know that the ability to speak well, the underneath skill is the ability to write well or have structured thinking. So the software, you can also write a sentence, a paragraph, an essay, and it gives you feedback on how to improve the essay. So for me, in terms of the future, generative AI will play an increasing role on personalization. Quick question. Why should all children have the same textbooks? Right? It was convenient for publishers. It was convenient to standardize before. Yeah. But I think the future will go from standardization to personalization. And generative AI was going to play a very big role in that. And you would need the computing power to be able to do software that requires generative AI, the internet power, the computing power to do this. I think schools will continue to be relevant because socialization is important. Children will come to schools to meet children of similar age groups and interact with them, play sports, dance together, do field experiments together, debate with each other, do activity-based learning with each other. So schools will continue to be relevant. And there will be times when they'll be doing group work, but both in school and at home, there will be a necessity to do individual work. In our times, we used to do standardized homework. All of us did the same exercise in a textbook. Why should we do that? Someone who needs more support should get more easier homework, should get more remediation support. And someone who's at the top of the class should accelerate their journey. They should be doing things that are 1 or 2 grade levels higher, right? And they should maximize their full potential. And I think the future of schooling physically might still look similar, but the future of learning will be more personalized. And I think generative AI is going to be the turbocharger to get us there faster.
It's definitely an exciting future that lies ahead. Pranav, this conversation has been eye-opening. You've shown us that personalized learning isn't just about technology, it's about empathy, strategy, and putting the child at the center of it all. To all the parents and educators watching, if today's conversation sparked a new perspective, we invite you to explore more at thelearningcurve.ai. This platform has expert explainers, guides, and resources to help you make informed tech decisions for your child's future. This is Padhai Ki Charcha, part of Intel Presents The Learning Curve, supported by the Times of India. I'm your host, Daksh Sethi. Until next time, keep learning your way.